Hey everyone! Alright, so I am going over the general feats in the new player's handbook. And I don't think I mentioned this last time, but I have to say that since a lot of the feats have been rebalanced, and so we have some previously pretty lousy feats now looking really attractive, I have to say it does make me actually kind of want to play a fighter sometime, even though fighter definitely isn't my favorite class, but just to be able to access more feats, there's no way I think I can possibly make a character with the new player's handbook that is going to access all the feats I want to try. So today we're going to be looking at 14 feats from the new player's handbook. These are kind of the middle feats alphabetically. I did the first 15 feats in my last video, and I'll do the last 14 feats in my next video. So this is kind of the 2 out of 3 in this series. And if you are enjoying these videos, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I know most of you have already subscribed. Thank you so much. But if you haven't, consider hitting the subscribe button. I'm pushing for 100,000 subscribers, and boy, I'd sure appreciate it. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's look at these feats. We got a few to go over. So we are going to start with Heavy Armor Master. So this appears in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and it gives you a 3 damage reduction for any bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage from non-magical weapons, and you can get a +1 to your strength or constitution score. So here's the new version of the feat. It's now got a prerequisite of 4th level or higher. Of course, you have to have heavy armor training or you're not going to get it. Again, you can increase your strength or constitution modifier. Damage reduction. When you're hit by an attack while you're wearing heavy armor, any bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage dealt to you by that attack is reduced by amount equal to your proficiency bonus. So if I had been given the go to redesign this feat myself, this is exactly what I would have done. Get rid of the whole magical attacks go through it nonsense, which appears to be thankfully gone from the game, and make it based on proficiency bonus so it scales. Now, when you first get this feat, if you get it at level 4, it'll actually provide you less protection than the old version, but that will quickly change when you get to level 5. It'll catch up, and by level 9, it will provide more protection. And one of the criticisms I had for the Heavy Armor Master feat was it can be pretty good when you first get it, and then it becomes less good as you go up in levels. So giving it that scaling, I think, is really important, and makes this a very solid feat. Out of 5, I'd give it 4 out of 5. Next, we have the Inspiring Leader feat, once again, in the 2014 Player's Handbook. This one, what it does is, after a long rest, you can give everybody temporary hit points equal to your level plus your charisma modifier. And this one says that we now have the prerequisite of level 4 or higher, wisdom or charisma 13 plus. I think the one in 2014 was just charisma. And then you can increase your wisdom or charisma by 1 to a maximum of 20. That's going to make it work for more characters than it would have in 2014, because, you know, your clerics, your druids, your rangers now can be fairly decent leaders as well. And then bolstering performance when you finish a short or long rest. Actually, I think the old one was also short or long rest. You can give an inspiring performance, a speech, a song, or a dance. When you do so, choose up to 6 allies, which I believe is the same, which can include yourself, within 30 feet of yourself to witness the performance. The chosen creatures gain temporary hit points equal to your character level plus the modifier of the ability you increase with this feat. So it works with wisdom or charisma. The big boost here, and Inspiring Leader was already a reasonably good feat, but the big boost here is getting the ability score increase. The old version didn't give you the ability score increase, so that is a significant boost to this, and making wisdom work as well certainly improves the versatility of this feat as to who can take it and really benefit from it. So again, I think very solid feat, and again, out of 5, I'd give it 4 out of 5. Next, we have the Keen Mind feat. We saw this in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and it was a half feat, or a feat that provided an intelligence boost, I believe, plus it gave you unerring memory, which obviously is a feat I don't have right now because I'm trying to remember it right. I think I have. So here is the new version, and of course 4 levels or higher, intelligence 13 or higher. Increase your intelligence by 1 to a maximum of 20. Choose one of the following skills: Arcana, History, Investigation, Nature, or Religion. If you lack proficiency in the chosen skill, you gain proficiency in it. If you already have proficiency in it, you gain expertise in it. And then quick study, you can take the study action as a bonus action. So the study action allows you to do intelligence-based skills. So if you wanted to do an investigation, or you wanted to do some kind of lore check, you could be fighting some monsters and you're not really sure what kind of vulnerabilities or resistances these monsters have. Well, maybe the appropriate lore check is what you need, and you could do it as a bonus action with a Keen Mind feat. I like that kind of mechanic being hardwired into the game. So this is no longer the perfect memory feat. Instead, it is about learning skills that are intelligence-based and being able to complete them very quickly. I like it. I think it is moderately powerful. 3 out of 5, right? I don't think it's a super powerful feat, but for the right kind of character that has that kind of thematics, I think it's a perfect fit. Now we're going to see a bit of a surprise here. Lightly armored. So the old version gave you proficiency in light armor. This new version, increase your strength or dexterity score by 1 to maximum of 20, and you gain armor training with light armor and shields. So shields used to be part of medium armor proficiency. They are now part of the lightly armored feat, which I think is an interesting change. It also makes lightly armored actually decently useful. I'm not sure it was worth the feat in the 2014 version, because light armor is normally something you're either already proficient in, or you're given some kind of alternative, like unarmored defense or mage armor. So I'm trying to think of any character in the game that is not proficient in light armor that doesn't get an alternative, and I can think of none. So lightly armored, not all that useful in 2014. However, adding shield proficiency on top of that is pretty good. And I'll also note that the reason this might be a surprise is because there was a lightly armored feat in the playtest that was available at level 1, gave you proficiency in light armor, medium armor, and shields available at level 1, which was too much. And this rebalancing by making a 4th level feat, and it's just light armor, not medium armor, and you get the shields. I think that's a nice way to compromise this feat. And if I was playing a character that didn't need to be wearing a whole lot of armor, but I wanted that +2 from shield, and strength or dexterity is my primary ability score, definitely worth considering. Like a rogue, for example, might do well from this. So I think it's okay. It's a 3 out of 5. All right, here is a feat I really like now. Mage Slayer. And what I really like here is this is a feat that I didn't like in 2014. It just wasn't very good. And now it's a whole lot better. This is a feat I might actually want to take. So you can increase your strength or dexterity score by 1 to a maximum of 20. So this is going to appeal to characters that use weapons primarily. Concentration Breaker. When you damage a creature that is concentrating, it has disadvantage on the saving throw. It has to maintain concentration. That's pretty good. And then this is the part I really like. Guarded Mind. If you fail an intelligence, a wisdom, or a charisma saving throw, you can cause yourself to succeed instead. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So essentially, it's like a legendary resistance for your player character for any failed mental ability save once per rest, either short or long. I think that is great, especially on a martial character. It kind of fits with fighters get Indomitable now. That is really strong and means that they are probably going to make those important saves. Barbarians, monks, rogues, even rangers, they could really use this kind of feat to help them compete in that regard. And yeah, I think Mage Slayer is pretty strong now. It is between a 3 and a 4 for me. I am going to say 3.5. Next up, we have Martial Weapon Training. So this one, just the prerequisite of your level. You increase your strength or dexterity score by 1. This seems to be a theme with a lot of these feats. And you gain proficiency with martial weapons. Well, they can't all be winners. So if I'm increasing my strength or dexterity, there's a good chance I'm already proficient in the weapons that I want to be using. So I really just don't see the point in this feat. This one is definitely weak, and I think this will be the first feat I give of all the feats 1 out of 5. I just don't see the point. Next up, we have Medium Armor Master. So this one requires medium armor training in order to take it. You get ability score increase to your strength or dexterity, and you get dexterous wearer. When you are wearing medium armor, you can add 3 rather than 2 to your armor class if you have a dexterity score of 16 or higher. So the medium armor master feat was in the old player's handbook, and they've actually nerfed it a little bit. The old version was basically the same as this, except it also allowed you to ignore disadvantage from wearing medium armor on your stealth checks, and they removed that. So they didn't replace it with anything, so it's just a weaker feat than it used to be. It's probably going to give you a +1 armor class, because why would you take this if you didn't have the dexterity modifier of 3 or higher? And so you're going to get a +1 armor class and +1 to hopefully a primary ability score. That's not awful. I mean, +1 armor class is something. It's better than getting proficiency in martial weapons that you probably had already. So I think it's worth 2 out of 5. But I wish what they had done is if they were going to remove the disadvantage from stealth, which, I mean, wasn't all that interesting because you could just wear a breastplate, right? Then I wish they had replaced it with something else, and they didn't. So that's too bad. I think it's a little bit on the weak side. Next, we have moderately armored. So you need to have light armor training in order to take this. You're going to increase your strength or dexterity score by 1, and you're going to get training with medium armor and not shield. So the old version gave you proficiency in shields. This one does not. And so that makes it weaker. Do I see characters taking this? I can see basically one version of a character taking this. You're proficient in light armor. You're not proficient in medium armor. You have a dexterity of 14, and you're not going to increase it because maybe you're a Blade Pact Warlock, right? And so you're just not going to be increasing your dexterity. You're going to be increasing your charisma, and so your armor class is going to lag behind. Well, if you can get half plate, you're looking at a much better armor class than studded leather. So I can see it for certain characters, but just very niche, right? So I think it's 2 out of 5 overall. But if you have the exact right character, I think it'll be good for you. All right, Mounted Combatant, again, in the Old Player's Handbook. So now you have to be 4th level. You can increase your strength, dexterity, or wisdom score by 1 to a maximum of 20. So a fair bit of choices there. Mounted Strike. While you're mounted, you have advantage on attack rolls against any unmounted creature within 5 feet of your mount. That's at least 1 size smaller than the mount, same as the old feat. Leap aside. When your mount is objected to an effect that allows it to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage. Instead takes no damage if it succeeds on the saving throw, and half damage if it fails. Again, that's from the old feat. And Veer. Well mounted, you can force an attack that hits your mount to hit you instead if you don't have the incapacitated condition. That one has changed. I don't know if you noticed the change there, but in the old version, you would have them target you with the attack instead, so they would have to hit your armor class in order to hit you. Now it's saying, hey, if you hit your mount, you can take the damage instead. So that's not as good. However, you're going to get an ability score increase that you didn't get before, which I think makes up for it. There are going to be certain abuse builds that are not going to work anymore because of this. There were certain builds that you would have another player character who operated as a mount. Maybe they were a centaur, maybe they were a moon druid, and you could do some pretty funky stuff with having enemies redirect their attacks. Abuse the sentinel feat, abuse armor class, all those kinds of things. That's not going to work anymore. They've tightened that loophole up. But because you're getting the ability score increase, I think generally speaking, this is probably a better feat. It just has less abuse available to it. But I'm more likely to take it because I wasn't really into the abuse thing unless it's a one-shot just for laughs. So I think it's worth 3 out of 5. I'm going to say 3 out of 5. It's close to a 3.5. So Observant is, once again, from the 2014 Player's Handbook and was a half feat, so it gave you an ability score increase in the old version, and it increased your passive investigation and perception checks, but not your active ones for some reason. Now, this version is going to be essentially the wisdom-based version of Keen Mind, which we went over just a few feats ago. So you're going to increase your intelligence or wisdom score by 1 to a maximum of 20. And you can qualify with an intelligence or wisdom of 13 or higher. Choose one of the following skills: insight, investigation, or perception. Of course, investigation is intelligence-based, which is why they've included intelligence here. If you lack proficiency with the chosen skill, you gain proficiency with it. And if you already have proficiency in it, you gain expertise in it. And quick search, you can take the search action as a bonus action. So instead of study, you're going to search. And this is what seems odd to me about this feat. If we look at the search action, it says make a wisdom, insight, medicine, perception, or survival check. Study is make an intelligence, arcana, history, investigation, nature, or religion check. So investigation is a study action, not a search action. Yet this is giving the search action as a bonus action, not the study action. And investigation, if you remember, was one of the skills you could take with Keen Mind. So it's kind of odd that it's here as well. I kind of get it from a thematic point of view. If you're observant, then I can see why you'd be better at investigation potentially, depending on the kind of investigation that you're doing. So thematically, I understand why it's here, but it is a little weird that, you can qualify with intelligence, you can increase your intelligence, you can take expertise in the investigation skill, and then you get a bonus action that has nothing to do with investigation. So that's kind of a weird fit, but I imagine for most characters who take this is going to be about wisdom. You're going to increase your wisdom, you're going to get expertise, or I guess proficiency. I'd probably take it for expertise in a wisdom skill, and then you are going to get the bonus action to do your wisdom checks, which, I mean, if you're doing something like a bonus action perception, that could be done in combat because some creature took the hide action and succeeded, and now you need to find them. Well, then you can use your bonus action with this feat to find them, and then, nuke them, right? So I can definitely see the value of this feat, and like Keen Mind, I think it's worth about 3 out of 5. The Piercer feat. Yep, it's direct from Tasha's, and it's the same. Other than they've added the prerequisite that you have to be 4th level, strength or dexterity by 1. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that does piercing damage, you can re-roll one of the attack's damage dice, and you can use the new roll. And when you score a critical hit that does piercing damage to a creature, you get 1 additional damage die to the result. And it's the same as it was in Tasha's. In Tasha's, it's an okay feat, and here I think it's an okay feat. It's 3 out of 5. Also here from Tasha's is the Poisoner feat. As a general feat, of course, level 4 or higher, you gain the following benefits. Ability score increase. You can increase your dexterity or intelligence score by 1. When you make a damage roll that deals poison damage, it ignores resistance to poison damage. And brew poison, you gain proficiency with the Poisoner's Kit. With 1 hour of work using such a kit and expending 50 gold pieces worth of materials, you can create a number of poison doses equal to your proficiency bonus. As a bonus action, you can apply a dose of poison to a weapon of your choice or ammunition. Once applied, the poison retains its potency for a minute or until you hit a creature with it, whichever is shorter. Whenever a creature takes damage from the poison item, that creature must succeed on a Constitution saving throw with the DC based on your proficiency bonus and the ability score you increase with this feat, or take 2d8 poison damage and have the poison condition until the end of your next turn. This is almost identical to the Poisoner feat from Tasha's, except the Poisoner feat in Tasha's didn't give you an ability score increase. So it's actually been boosted a fair bit because you can increase your dexterity or intelligence. not too bad. I mean, if I was a rogue, I could definitely consider this. The one issue, well, I should say I have two issues with the poisoner feat. The first is that the poison that you make is going to be very, very gold consuming. So if you do not get a lot of gold in your adventures, you're not really going to be able to benefit from that. The second is, of course, there's a lot of creatures that are immune to poison. Now, I'm curious if that'll still be the case when the new Monster Manual comes out. And frankly, that does make this hard to rate, because if less creatures are immune to poison, this could be a really good feat. As it is, based on the Monster Manual we currently have, I'd say it's still okay, 3 out of 5. And then we have Polearm Master. Okay, so we need a strength or dexterity of 13 or higher, which we almost certainly should have. It's almost odd that they've got dexterity here when polearms, I think, are all, like, I don't think there's any finesse polearms. But anyway, you increase your dexterity or strength by 1 immediately after you take the attack action and attack with a quarterstaff, a spear, or a weapon that has the heavy and reach properties. And I should mention that in the playtest, they got rid of the quarterstaff and spear working with Polearm Master. They're back in. You can use a bonus action to make a melee attack with the opposite end of the weapon. The weapon deals bludgeoning damage, and the weapon's damage die for this attack is a d4, which should look extremely familiar, right, if you have used Polearm Master in the 2014 version of the Player's Handbook. And Reactive Strike, when you are holding a quarterstaff, a spear, or a weapon that has the heavy and reach properties, you can take a reaction to make 1 melee attack against a creature that enters the reach you have with that weapon. And again, should look very familiar. So basically what they've done is they've taken the old Polearm Master feat and they've added an ability score increase to it, which is really good. On the other hand, there are more ways to use your bonus action than ever before. And Great Weapon Master, which was often combined with Polearm Master to get plus 10 damage on that D4 attack, doesn't work anymore. Great Weapon Master now only works with attacks from your attack action, not your bonus action. So that actually brings Polearm Master back down. Overall, I'd still say it's a solid feat, but maybe 3 out of 5. And here is the final feat we're going to cover in this video. Resilient. This is one of my favorites. I often take Resilient Constitution on casters. So what are we getting? We choose one ability which we lack saving throw proficiency. We increase the chosen ability by 1 to a maximum of 20, and we gain the saving throw proficiency with the chosen ability. It's a very simple feat. They haven't changed it at all other than adding the level requirement, and I've always thought this is a pretty good feat, and I still think it's a pretty good feat. Of course, keep in mind the bias that I like making my saving throws. If they're not as important to you, then you might consider a lower rating than I'm giving it, but I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. And if you don't think saving throws are as important as I do, then maybe you think it's 3 out of 5, and that's fine. Different tables play different ways, and you might just have different experiences than me. And I'm not wrong, you're not wrong. And so those are all the general feats we're going over in today's video. In my next video, we're going to discuss the final general feats in the new Player's Handbook, and some of those feats have had major revisions. You're going to see a very different Ritual Caster. You're going to see a very different Shield Master feat, so that should be a good video. Then we're going to talk about fighting styles, and some of them have changed. Also, we've had some imported from Tasha's. And then we're going to talk about Epic Boon feats, so still some feat stuff to talk about. So those will be my next videos, and I hope you will join me for those. And I just about forgot how I finished these videos. I'm gonna sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. It rhymes. Should be able to remember that. And thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Hello, Polearm Master, my old friend. I've come to bash with you again, because the monster needs some squishing with the damage that you're dishing, and the swinging glaive will cut in half your brain until none remains, and that's the Polearm Master feat. There you go, Colby. You're not the only good-looking YouTuber who can sing like an angel.